This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
Good morning. This is the September 21st, 2022 meeting of the Massachusetts Housing Partnership and the Southampton Housing Authority Subcommittee working on the Affordable Housing Bylaw. Meeting is called to order at 9:09. And we are being recorded.
Great. So I don't know if we actually formally put together an agenda, but it sounds like you all have made some great progress.
Yeah, I just put together an agenda for our meeting purposes for our online posting. We have to have an agenda in place. So just update members on the bylaw, next steps, anything that can't wait, schedule next meeting, very, all inclusive.
Oh, got it. Okay, I see it now. Sorry. So the bylaw has gone through the subcommittee and the select board, both of those have signed up on it.
Yeah, there was a question. We sent it off to legal, or I sent it to our town administrator to send off to legal to review. There's just one really highlighted question in regards to, I think, mortgages and liabilities. And just like what the town's liability would be if the trust obtained a mortgage. So we're getting clarification in regards to that from legal. But otherwise it was supported. It seemed the select board was supportive of it.
So what does that mean? That it's not yet considered included on the warrant until the question is answered and the select board formally reviews it again?
Yes, until we get the answer for the question, yes.
Plus legal, they wouldn't finalize it for the town until legal reviewed it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah, they send everything that goes on the warrant to legal first anyways. So this is very standard.
And all bylaws go to legal.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, so how do you all feel about this?
Hyped.
Good.
Excellent job by
Nice.
Joy and Sierra. So they did a nice job with the select board. Joy was switching hats.
Yes.
Back and forth. And so has sorry if I'm just forgetting, but has the town meeting the date been scheduled yet?
No, I was just saying, I don't even know if there might be a special town meeting. We're not sure. That's still up in the air. And there has not been an annual town meeting date selected either. So town meetings are up in the air.
But annual is in the spring.
Yeah, there's
right.
definitely an annual one in the spring. But
yeah, there's one.
We usually have one to certify free cash if our work submitted. So hopefully if not in the fall, maybe in early year. Hopefully.
Yeah, if there was going to be one, it would be December, January.
Oh, so what do you think our next steps are given the uncertainty of when the actual meeting is?
Can I ask anybody, either Sarah or Joy, ask maybe Shelley the question more specifically? What's the one question that came up at the select board meeting about the liability? And maybe Shelley, you have some.
Well, that was the same question that the bylaw committee had, and I did ask Shelley, and she said, I suggest asking the lawyer about this.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. But in terms of next steps, I think we should move forward as if it's going to be as early as it could possibly be, just so we're ready just in case. And then if it's not in December, then we have more time to promote it. But I think that we should think in our minds that it's going to be December, just in case it is.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So yeah, the promotion is a really biggie once it passes, apparently, right? And I don't know if MHP has what's worked with in other towns and.
Yeah, so it kind of depends on the structure of the town and how people communicate in the town. So in some, it's really highlighting key remind me again, is town meeting elected, or is it representative, or is it open?
Representative. It's open. Well,
It's
it's
open.
open to everybody. I'm sorry. Open.
Yeah, it's an open town meeting.
Open. So
Dangerous. Okay. No.
Right, yeah.
You never know what you're gonna get at town meeting.
yep. So it's more uncertain, and it's a little bit harder to maybe focus. Like in some communities where it's representative, there might be key kind of boards or people or whatever that you need to target. So it's considering if there are certain, you've done a lot of initial outreach with boards, so there might be circling back to make sure that they're understanding the exact language that is put in the bylaw. So that is one step, is kind of potentially making the rounds. There could be, once it's actually on the warrant, some communities have a public meeting where it's going through what's on the warrant. So if you have something like that, then it would be actively participating in that, explaining the bylaw. Some communities, they have a paper that a lot of people read, and they might put a letter to the editor explaining it, the importance of it. And we actually our head of public affairs helped one community kind of fine tune their letter to the editor. So that's something down the road that we could potentially help with as well. So it's kind of identifying some communities might have an active town social media. And so maybe it's putting some things on social media, kind of just identifying what are the spaces in Southampton that are effective and that people pay attention to. If there's a blog that someone does locally that a lot of people like, maybe it's asking that person to do something on this as well.
We have, you know how the Gazette has that little leaflet that's specifically for the Hamptons, as it were? That could be that's the closest thing we have to a local newsletter, I think.
Except for the reminder, maybe.
Yeah, the reminder.
The reminder has a very specific, and that gets thrown on everybody's lawn basically too, where the Gazette is.
Is that what I'm thinking of?
Maybe that's what it comes in a little bag.
Well, I've never gotten it, so I'm just excluded for that.
Oh yeah, no, it comes to, they just like throw it on your lawn and you're like, did I order this?
Maybe I saw it.
It's so random. I don't know who sends. I don't know how they choose who gets it and who doesn't, honestly, because
one of the more regional newspapers has a section that's just for East Hampton and Southampton. I don't know if it's the Gazette or the Reminder, but that's the only Southampton specific thing I've ever seen.
I think that's a reminder specifically. I mean, it's more active. It has like East Hampton, Southampton.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe we can get in there.
There's also who's the town speaker moderator?
Robert Floyd.
Yeah, Robert Floyd. Doesn't he have like some kind of newsletter as well?
Yeah, he has a e-newsletter called the Southampton News.
How do you get that? I've heard people talk about it on the town Facebook page, but I look so hard to where it is.
I'll forward you his newsletter, and there should be a way to sign up listed.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, that's me too, please.
Okay.
And then, yeah, we do have the social media page where anyone can post. That's really good. I think because the social media algorithm, can't talk so early, is so fickle, I think we should all get in there and post separately about it. So there's more chance. Like, I don't think we can just assign one of us to post in there, and I hope people see it. I think we all need to sort of strategically do it every week leading up to it, and include like a photo so it gets seen, maybe a photo of an animal or a bear.
And maybe, or post this, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Or make sure that you're liking it and that you're commenting on each other's posts just to increase the circulation too.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, we have a town Facebook page where it's, I think the community one is kind of, a loose cannon. The town one is a little bit more monitored, and, but I'm sure I don't know if the town one gets as much viewing.
Yeah, I don't know if it does. I think it's good to go in the loose cannon one, because then those loose cannons might show up to the town meeting. So it'd be good to sort of preview what they're going to do.
Yeah, they don't usually show up, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't know if they do, but
they're the armchair critics. They're like,
I do think that you need to be prepared to respond to some things that are just going to be, some people might just post things that are just really not true. That are trends or
It's
stereotypes
the
and
people
all
that
that.
aren't on social media that I'm concerned of, like the people that are older and have already preconceived notions that are going to come to town meeting and say something.
Well, Janet can reach all those people through the COA newsletter. So,
Oh yeah, that's,
We could put an article in the COA newsletter for sure.
yeah.
The senior scoop.
yeah.
So I was thinking, but at first I was thinking, well, maybe spaces like, wouldn't it be great to have affordable housing here? But then you can get into a lot of problems that, if you make it too specific at this point, because it's just really early to make anything too specific.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think I'm just wondering if we're better off focusing on the bylaw itself versus about creating a trust. I'm sorry, not the bylaw, but creating a trust to manage affordable housing versus affordable housing in general. I'm thinking through this out loud.
I convincing angle. That was like why I joined the housing authority, because Janet was like, listen, we keep trying to buy houses and it takes too long to get it through town meeting. And all I want to do is create a housing trust. And I was like, that makes so much sense. People really get that. And so I think in terms of like summarizing our key points, I think that should be a huge one. And then obviously we're going to say, it's to create affordable housing. It's one of our major goals as the housing authority. But I think like the why of like, this is just what we need to spend our money. I think that will, and the fact that another thing that always convinces people at town meeting that I find really convincing is when they're like, we're not spending new money. We're just moving money to the place where it needs to be so we can spend it. And that's another really good point to say, because people are always scared, oh, you're going to tax me more. It's like, no, this money is literally sitting here waiting to be spent. Just like, let us get it to a point where we can spend it.
Yeah, exactly. I think the point we need to make is our tax dollars are just sitting there and it's pretty near impossible to use them because of the steps that need to be taken. So it's just wasted money until it's not wasted, but it's ineffectual tax dollars.
So do you think that going to different boards and reviewing once it gets finalized by legal or the question is answered, do you think it makes sense to kind of do to go around to different boards again, just to make sure that they're aware of the actual language in the bylaw? Or do you feel like that you've moved beyond that?
I don't know if I'm concerned about the board. I don't think I'm concerned with anyone who's involved with the town. Let me put it that way, because I think they understand the need for the housing trust. I think it's the public that I'm more concerned about.
What about, how
the finance committee, I still haven't, they've evaded, like they post their meetings like the Friday before and I just I can't make them, but I know they have to, before anything goes on the town warrant, they review everything and they either state they have no position or they support it or they don't support each item. So that's definitely something that we'll have to address. I will address. We will.
I'm trying to remember if they've ever commented on bylaws, and because it's right now CPC money, they don't usually comment on that, but it'd be definitely good to get them educated.
Yeah, we just want to make sure that they're not worried that it's going to create more work for them. We want them fully on board, and when they talk to their friends about it, they won't be like, it's just another big thing for me to do.
And I think it's good that we kind of have actually waited, because they probably would have also had the same questions select board did in regards to liability to the town if the housing trust took out a mortgage, whatnot. So having answers for those questions when we go see them is probably more advantageous than not having those answers.
I'm not so worried about the senior population in town, because I think they would all love to see affordable senior housing somehow come to Southampton. So I think they would be pretty supportive of a trust to help make that happen more smoothly. So I'm not as concerned about my generation as
at least the ones that you're friends with. That's the ones that you don't know that are the problem.
This is true.
Yeah, definitely not worried about the CPC. They're like 100% behind this.
Right,
Oh,
right.
yeah. So I was actually going to say that I think bringing on the CPC chair, because she was so supportive of the concept, bringing her on board to help with, she does social media, like to support that effort as well, to have the CPC chime in. I think the more that you can show that it's not just the housing people, but it goes beyond the housing people is also, I think, really beneficial.
Maybe we get her to stand up and speak at the town meeting in favor of it.
Yes, I think that having a CPC chair speak at town meeting in favor of it would be a great idea.
She would be more than happy to do that.
And she's also on the bylaw committee.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been part of the process to understand the whole.
Do you think we get Chris to also speak in favor of it?
Well, Francine's the chair, so they can determine which one of those two people would speak. Yeah.
Cool.
I'm sure Francine would be happy to defer, but
Yeah, one of them. Chris.
those are two select board members that are also on the bylaw committee, not as select board members, but as active bylaw members.
Yeah.
All right, I have to hop off, but I will hear about next steps. I'm excited to see what happens with all of this.
Thank you, Emma.
Bye.
Thanks, Emma.
So another key thing is to narrow in on messaging. So you started talking about that. And I think deciding on a few key points or us putting together a half pager or something simple that is really brief, or a one pager that explains, very brief, that gives a very summarized definition of what a trust is, what they can do, and then a few key points to make the case of why you believe that Southampton should create a trust. And you have the housing production plan, so it might be pulling a little bit about data, just really brief about needs. But something like that, that then when all of you are speaking about it, that you're saying the same things.
Mhm.
Things.
So will you help us to develop that?
Yeah, I was gonna ask, do you have like templates for some of these? No?
Every
Okay.
community does this stuff differently, but
Okay.
we would definitely help create something like that.
And what's the first step? Would you start by drafting something, or do you want us to draft something and send it over to you for comments?
So why don't I do a draft, kind of like the kinds of information and where, and then we start thinking about what specifically we pull out of the housing production point. I might do a first kind of draft suggestion of some things, and then you help fill it out and that sort of thing. The only thing is that I'm not really strong with design. So if you have anyone that's good with design and could make it prettier, then that would be, I'll do my best, but it would be helpful if there's someone that is just better at that.
I've created some pretty ugly flyers in my day.
I'm so bad at that. None of us are. The one flyer I made for Housing Authority, I had my coworker do it for me because I literally could not. I couldn't get her help. She's coming over today. So we'll see.
We were giving you all that credit.
No.
So Emma and I will work on a first attempt. How's that?
Great.
And then maybe that could be used. You know how there's like the little sort of menu that gets handed out at the town meeting to describe things? That will probably give us some great language for that as well.
I think the support documents at the town meeting are really helpful, so that'll be great.
Mhm.
And
if you feel like you need during town meeting, if you need to want to make a presentation, we can help with a few slides with just brief information if that's helpful as well.
Okay. And I think if we can get the flyer done, and we usually do a couple actual mailings of the senior scoop. So if we get that done in time for our next mailing, we'll see if we can insert it or put a full page of it in there. So that would be probably more interesting to people than a whole article where they get to the third paragraph and they're maybe.
Yeah. And we could even flyer it at other places where we put up flyers.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And if we have to have like a public information session to help educate, I guess we could do that depending on when the town meeting is, before the town meeting.
Does Southampton not do that with before town meetings just as standard? No.
No.
Well, they do, the one they do is the Robert Floyd, he's the moderator. He does an information session that's televised on the local, e-media. And he does that like maybe the week before the annual town meeting or special town meeting. So he reviews all the warrants.
Okay.
I don't know how many people show, but they do report it, and maybe people would watch it more on, after it's been recorded, either YouTube or,
But does he answer questions?
I think if questions come up, I guess we could ask him if we could, I'm not sure. That's how much I've attended. So, because I always feel pretty educated on the warrants within the warrant.
I think it would be helpful for us to have a public information session.
Yeah.
Just based on other conversations that I've had with in other meetings where it wasn't received very well. So.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Or what wasn't received very well?
Affordable housing.
Just the idea of affordable housing.
I'm going based off the conversation that we had with planning board and the inclusionary bylaw.
Oh yeah, well,
But I think that's the attitude of a lot of people in town. And I think it would be helpful to have a public information session.
that's true. It's just a matter of like the people that show up to our things are the people who already know and support it. Like getting the people who disagree with us to show up is so hard. But if we can get into Robert Floyd's thing, which is like non-denominational, maybe that'll be good.
True. Yeah. I don't know. But also housing trust implies that there's money. And people, like I said before, are interested in what is going on with the town's money.
True.
And housing obviously affects people, ears perk up in the private sector as well in regards to housing and projects. I'm projecting. I don't know if that's we haven't done this yet. So that's my guess. I'm just going based off what we've seen in housing authority with projects being brought to us and discussions we've had and, with people who've been passionate about their stance on it. I'd be interested to see who shows up to a public information session.
Yeah, I think a trust, again, is different than affordable housing. It's that we have the money, and how do we best put someone in charge to spend that money, I think is different than should we have affordable housing in Southampton. The state already mandates that, right? And we're way behind the 8 ball.
Which of course people will turn it into that, as we learned from that fateful planning board meeting, people will turn almost anything into a should we have affordable housing or not question, even if that's not at all the question at hand.
Right. Yeah. But that's an individual.
Sure. Yeah, there's a lot in town, but yeah.
So do you think that the messaging of where you are on the SHI, how low, and the trust can help the town get to the minimum 10% requirement? Do you think that kind of messaging would sit well with people or land well, or no?
I don't know if it's that as much as it is, we have this money and we don't have a good mechanism to effectively move it to reality because it's tied up in a whole process. And I know some people won't want to give up control of spending CPC money, every nickel, but I think overall people understand that the reason we haven't been successful isn't lack of effort, it's lack of process more.
But it is true that if the question is in people's minds, like, why do we even need affordable housing? There's no poor people in this town. That is the answer we can give them. Like more so than the town survey or the housing production plan data that's like, well, there's some people who might be interested. I think just the fact that it's a mandate, like we don't really have a choice. We're supposed to have 10%. We have less than 2%. I do think that's one of the key points. Maybe not the first one, but I do think it's key.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, we must have probably 500,000 in CPC for affordable right now. So, I mean, it just sits there because we can't, every time there's an opportunity, as we all know, the process is just too slow. So
this is also kind of like from the public, as a private citizen, my concern. And someone who has seen things through affordable housing and town is CPC. Yes, there's lots of red tape and you have to go through it, but at least that's a protection for the town of having to go through that. And there's steps and everything is out in the open and very transparent. As we've had private companies come to the housing authority and say, this is the project we want to do. And we said, well, these are the red tapes you have to go through. And they were like, no, thank you. So now we're removing those red tapes. And so that I kind of is a little bit of a concern of like, okay, now we're just letting, these private companies say, hey, the town's taking the money. We're lessening the red tapes. Are you bringing your projects to us? But I kind of want to make sure that there's still transparency there for the town.
yeah, they still have to go through the planning board, I mean, and I think the trust would have to report to community preservation, and it's still an open meeting law. So the meetings are still open. It's not like the trust goes into a little room, closes the door, and decisions are made in isolation either. So, those are all still, I understand what you're saying. Absolutely. And that was always in the back of my mind, but it's not.
Hey, free money here for your projects. No, I also want to get that point across too. This is still this is part of our town. It needs to be transparent. It's subject to open meeting laws.
Yeah. Yeah.
The only way that it would be, any kind of really be private or more private is if it's like a single family house that you're funding on a lot that's by right. I mean, everything else has to go through zoning, planning, everything else is a process. It's just that you're contributing to the cost. So it's, and reminding people that a select board member has to be on the board and that the community appoints the board and it's a municipal board. So all those things are part of what you need to remind people that it just doesn't need to go to town meeting.
Right. That's the step the first
that's
transfer has to go to town meeting, right? Anything that's transferred from CPC
transfer has to go to town meeting.
It has to be approved by the town. So they're not giving up that money without a vote from the town. So
is there any other board or commission that would have access to this amount of funds and doesn't have to go to town meeting?
What about Concom? Do they have to apply for CPA funds for a specific project? They don't catch up.
Yeah, they don't. I think this would be the only one that doesn't have to go to town meeting.
Trust is very different. Yeah. It's initially transferred. It's kind of like Parks has had a ton of money transferred to finish Labrie Field, and it's just sitting in their account. Again, the town approved transferring it from CPC to that project, but it's, once it's there, I don't know if they change the plans, does it have to go back to CPC to modify how they're spending the money? I don't have those answers.
So the trust statute requires that the trust report back to the CPC on an annual basis of how they spent any money.
Mm-hmm.
Part of what I think the CPC chair can help with this is to help be a voice of saying the CPC will expect a report every year and regular communication with the trust. So I think if you have the CPC doing some of that, assuring the community that the CPC is serious about monitoring how the CPA funds are used.
That's a good.
When CPA money is transferred to the trust, that that you have a grant agreement. So just because it's municipal board to municipal board, you still want to have a grant agreement, and they should still outline the expectations around the funds and a way to receive the funds back if funds aren't used in, 5 years or 7 years or whatever, if you want to do that sort of thing. So the town should be assured that the funds will come back to CPA if the trust is.
So that's an optional.
You can do all those kinds of things just if there ends up being so much concern, which I don't imagine, but it could. So I just would get the CPC chair on board early to help articulate these things.
Do you have any experience in Massachusetts with a community that got it voted down, and what were their pitfalls? Or somebody we could speak with, like to talk about what, learn from their hard lessons?
Yeah. So Stoughton just failed passing a trust last year, and I never got full analysis, but they had some key anti-people that showed up at town meeting and created a lot of questions and concerns, and it failed at town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a public 101 thing that we've done with Southampton, and there was someone there who was very adversarial, and I brought up a concern afterwards, and the couple key people kind of dismissed it, didn't think it was really pervasive. Like they didn't think it was a lot of people in the community. They thought it was this person and maybe a few people. But I think that they misjudged that, and people showed up at town meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do hear, if people do start being very adversarial about it at different meetings, I think you should take it seriously, not wait for it's serious or not.
Oh, I take it seriously.
And then I think we need to strategize about how to address that, or how to answer concerns, or to really weigh how significant do we think the influence could be in the community.
Can I ask, did Stoughton have a CPA? Or yeah,
I don't know how. I don't believe that the CPC chair was equivalent to your CPC chair, who was extremely supportive. So I don't know if they had quite that relationship. And Stoughton, compared to some communities, might be a bit more conservative.
Mm.
I don't know how much they did in terms of just really getting out the need for affordable housing as well. Making the case for that, I'm not sure.
Where is Stoughton?
South of Boston, near Sharon and Easton and that area.
Okay. Yeah.
So if you wanted to speak with the person who was my main contact, I could. If someone wanted to reach out to him to dig a little more, but I think that they did have some indicators, and that I just don't think that they thought. I think that they didn't think it was as significant as it turned out to be.
Ultimately, I feel like the person who I got into it with about the inclusionary bylaw, their take was more about the money in regards to the inclusionary bylaw, and ultimately supported the housing trust because it cut out the red tape and was more of a free flow of money. So if there were projects to be done, at the end of the day, they're a business person. But I think the essence of just like, affordable housing, like people can't afford to live here, or is a sentiment that others feel more strongly about in town that I've witnessed. I've had private conversations with people that I just don't want they think affordable housing will bring the riffraff. Mm-hmm. I also don't think these people vote at town meeting either, but but how do we assure that our community isn't going to go downhill because we have affordable housing? Oh, Janet, you're on mute.
The Stoughton has just under 30,000 people, so it's a very different community.
Mm.
And I'm surprised they have town meeting there, or is that?
Oh, yeah, they're just,
I'll have to, I'm trying to
you said
see.
they have just under 30,000?
Yeah, 29.3, about
And how many do you have?
6.
6,000. Oh, Brookline has like 80,000 people and they still do town meeting.
Okay.
So there's
Like an open town meeting or elected?
it might be in Brookline, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I can't imagine any 80,000.
But the point being, all of the stuff that has to go through the town process, like in a community the size of Brookline, it's okay. So the next steps, we have some ways that we are thinking about promoting it. We need to work on a proposed kind of messaging flyer that we can build off of. And then you just need to wait for legal to respond to the question. But I think that we're in a good position. But
Okay.
as if it could be December, because my goodness, it's already
September.
September, so it's going to be here before we know it.
I know.
I have a question. So, how long do we have you for? I thought we were ending in September.
Yeah, but we'll do at least the end of the year where it's more intensive, and then we'll think about what happens if town meeting doesn't happen this year.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds like a plan.
So I need to circle back with Emma to see about both of our schedules about working on this before I commit to a deadline on it. But we will, because it's already almost October, then I think we want to get something perhaps by the middle of October where we feel good about it. So we'll try to move on it as quickly as we can.
Cool.
So should we try to schedule another meeting like later in October, where after we've reviewed it and stuff, or do you think that's necessary?
Yeah, I think that maybe for a month out, we should just put something in our calendars so that it's there as we start getting, busier when we get closer to. So 1, 2, 3.
So somewhere around the 19th maybe, or
19th, around the 19th, if people have the morning of the 19th.
does that work for
I'm sorry, what's the date?
the 19th, October 19th?
October 19th. That should work.
And maybe we could post
Let me
it
check
to
my other calendar.
9:15 instead of 9 if it's possible, just because
Yeah, that's fine.
I need the admin to get me into her Zoom account sometime if I get locked out again. So
Okay, so 9:15.
is that okay?
At 9:15.
Is that
Okay.
work better for you, Shelley?
Yeah, it could be better for me too. Yeah.
Okay. A tentative meeting. So anyway, all right.
I hope not. I'm writing it in Sharpie.
Yeah, let's say October 19th at 9:15.
9.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay, and then Emma and I will be in touch shortly about the one pager.
Okay, great.
Thank
So
you so much.
I have to officially close the meeting since we have a
I
majority here.
moved
So
to adjourn the housing authority meeting.
we have a second.
Seconded.
Roll call. Kane, aye.
Piper, aye.
Okay, good.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Aye.
Bye-bye.
This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.